The portfolio case slips from my fingers, hitting the hardwood with a thud that echoes through Rebecca's kitchen. Time freezes as my brother-in-law Daniel's eyes dart to mine, widening with unmistakable guilt. "We need to start making plans to get her out now that the business deal is coming through," Rebecca had just said, her voice carrying clearly from around the corner. 5 months. That's how long I've lived under their roof, paying rent that's barely below market value in this overpriced Denver suburb. Today should have marked my unofficial anniversary in their home instead. It marks the moment I discover the truth. Allison. Allison? Rebecca spins around, her hand flying to her throat. "I didn't hear you come in." I should say something, but the betrayal lodges in my throat like a stone. My entire body feels hollow, as if someone has scooped out everything inside me and left only a thin shell standing in their pristine kitchen with its gleaming marble countertops and carefully arranged fruit bowl. The arrangement was never about helping family. It was a financial stopgap they're eager to end. "You're home early," Daniel says, taking a small step backward, physically removing himself from whatever confrontation might follow. I remember that dinner back in March, the one where they presented this living arrangement as family helping family. Rebecca had reached across the table to squeeze my hand, saying, "What kind of sister would I be if I didn't help you get back on your feet after grad school?" What kind indeed. I'd been so grateful. Not just for the room, but for what I thought was genuine support. I'd paid my substantial rent on time every month. I'd cooked dinner 3 nights a week. I'd stayed late with their son Jeremy when their babysitter canceled. I'd scrubbed bathrooms and vacuumed stairs and listened to Rebecca complain about clients who didn't appreciate her design expertise. The first warning sign had come last month when I'd casually mentioned staying through winter. Rebecca's smile had tightened around the edges, her fingers tapping a rapid rhythm against her coffee mug. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," she'd said. "Now it all makes sense." My hand steady as I bend to retrieve my fallen portfolio. 5 years of design school and a master's degree taught me precision under pressure. I straighten, meeting Rebecca's gaze directly. "I heard everything," I say, my voice calmer than I feel. "Let's talk honestly for once." Rebecca's cheeks flush, but she recovers quickly. "We were just discussing future plans for the nursery." Her hand drifts to her stomach, though there's no visible pregnancy yet. "Rebecca." My tone stops her mid-sentence. "I heard you. The business deal came through, so now you don't need my rent money anymore." Daniel takes another step back, physically distancing himself from the conversation. It's what he always does: defer to Rebecca, retreat from conflict, become invisible when things get difficult. They're blood relatives, but in this moment, he might as well be a stranger. Rebecca's embarrassment transforms into righteous indignation, her posture stiffening. "You shouldn't eavesdrop in someone else's home, Allison." "Someone else's home, not our home, not your home, too. Someone else is aliened." The words strike like a physical blow. I've been here 5 months, contributing in every way possible, yet I've always been just a visitor, an intruder, never family, despite the blood we share. "How long do I have?" I ask, clutching my portfolio closer. Inside are the preliminary sketches for the downtown contract that could make my career the one that requires me to be within commuting distance of the city center. "We can discuss details later," Rebecca says. Suddenly, all business. "We should sit down and work out a timeline that's fair to everyone." Fair, as if anything about this situation has ever been fair. I nod once, turning toward the stairs that lead to my temporary bedroom. Each step feels heavier than the last as the reality sinks in. I'm facing potential homelessness while working on the most important project of my budding career. Behind me, I hear Rebecca's whispered hiss to Daniel. "This is exactly why we needed to plan this carefully." I keep climbing, my mind already racing through options, calculations, and possibilities. One thing is certain: I've always been a means to an end for them, never family. Just a convenient solution to a temporary problem. Well, now I have a problem of my own to solve. The next day, while they are outside, the glow of Rebecca's laptop screen illuminates my face as I stare at the email, my fingers frozen above the keyboard. I hadn't meant to open her account. The shared family computer had simply loaded her profile when I sat down to check my design deadlines. Now, I can't look away from what's right in front of me. Contract finalized. $175,000 commission blazes in the subject line. The timestamp shows 3 weeks ago. My stomach knots as I scroll through the congratulatory messages from their business partner. They hadn't been struggling financially for weeks, perhaps months. I grip the edge of the desk, a wave of nausea washing over me as I read further down the email thread. "We need to discuss how to diplomatically handle the Allison situation now that we're back on solid ground." Rebecca had written, "The pregnancy gives us the perfect reason without seeming callous." The perfect reason, as if I were a household item they no longer needed. I close the email and push away from the desk, my legs unsteady as I stand. For months, I've paid my rent, cooked their meals, cleaned their home, watched their child, all while believing I was helping family through a rough patch. The truth stings like winter air on bare skin. That evening, Rebecca sets the table with unusual precision, placing me in what I now recognize as the guest position farthest from Daniel at the head. She serves dinner standing, one hand frequently drifting to her slightly visible pregnancy bump whenever she makes a point. Daniel sits with his arms crossed, his gaze fixed on his plate. Daniel mentions something that concerns me. Rebecca says, her voice deceptively casual as she serves the pot roast I'd prepared before leaving for work. He said you've been overly friendly with him. The accusation lands like a slap. I turn to Daniel, waiting for him to deny this absurdity. He avoids my eyes but offers a slight nod when I stare at him in shock. That's not true, I say, my voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through my body. And you know it. Rebecca places her hand on her stomach again, a gesture I now see for what it is, a shield against contradiction. We've also noticed some of the people you've had over when we weren't home. My fork clatters against my plate. What people? I haven't had a single visitor since I moved in. Jeremy mentioned strangers, Rebecca continues, referring to their 6-year-old son who's currently at a sleepover. Children don't lie about these things. The fabrications pile up like snowdrifts, too absurd to melt with logic. My breathing shallows as I realize what's happening. They're building a case against me, creating fictional infractions to justify pushing me out now that they no longer need my financial contribution. I think, Rebecca says, lowering herself into her chair with exaggerated care. You might be happier somewhere else, especially since we'll need your room for the baby very soon. Ever. The truth clicks into place. How soon, I ask, though I already know the answer won't be reasonable. 3 weeks should be plenty of time, Rebecca says, cutting her meat with precise movements. The painters are scheduled for the 4th. My heart thuds against my ribs. 3 weeks? In this housing market? Daniel clears his throat. We've checked online. There are plenty of places available. With 6 to 12-month wait lists. I counter, thinking of the dozens of rental applications I've already filled out, preparing for an eventual move. And first and last month's rent plus security deposits. Rebecca's smile doesn't reach her eyes. You've been working and living here rent-free for months. Surely you've saved enough. Rent-free? The words nearly choke me. I push back from the table and walk to my room, returning moments later with a folder containing bank statements. I place them in front of Rebecca, pointing to the highlighted monthly transfers. I've paid rent every month, on time, at the rate you set. Rebecca barely glances at the evidence. We hate to do this, but family comes first. Our growing family needs this space. Family comes first. The irony of her words burns in my chest as I gather the statements. My downtown client expects daily check-ins for the next 3 months. Moving farther away would mean hours of commuting or risking the biggest contract of my career. The false accusations have destroyed any trust between us. But homelessness would destroy everything I've worked for. As I return to my room that night, clutching financial records that prove my reliability, a question haunts me. Should I confront their lies head-on and risk immediate eviction, or quietly plan my exit while protecting my career? Standing up for truth might feel righteous, but homelessness would destroy everything I've worked for. What would you do when principles and practicality collide? I carefully slide the bank statements back into their folder, my mind churning with limited options and the bitter taste of betrayal. Rebecca doesn't waste a day. The next day, my phone buzzed with 3 separate calls from aunts and cousins before I even had my morning coffee. How could you leave your sister when she's expecting? How could you leave your sister? Aunt Margie's voice carries the weight of familial judgment. Rebecca told us you found a place closer to work. I thought family meant more to you. I gripped the phone tighter, staring out the kitchen window at Rebecca watering her petunias. She catches my eye and waves, the picture of innocence. It's not quite that simple, I say, but Aunt Margie has already launched into a lecture about sisterly obligations that stretches back to the Eisenhower administration. When I return from work that evening, 4 cardboard boxes sit stacked in the middle of my room. My design materials, carefully organized in portfolios, have been crammed inside, corners bent, and pages crinkled. My fabric samples are mixed with bathroom toiletries. I started packing for you, Rebecca says, leaning against the doorframe. Her hand rests on her barely visible bump, just being helpful. I notice the small tear in the corner of my presentation board for tomorrow's client meeting. The damage is subtle but unmistakable. Oh, did that get damaged? Rebecca's voice carries artificial concern. Moving is always so chaotic. The next morning, I wake to a notification on my phone, unable to connect to Wi-Fi. I try the password, nothing. After 3 failed attempts, I knock on their bedroom door. Daniel answers in his bathrobe, avoiding my eyes. Changed the password yesterday. Security concerns. I can text it to you later today. My presentation is due in 3 hours. I gather my materials and leave early, hoping the coffee shop's internet will suffice for the final touches. That afternoon, Rebecca calls as I'm leaving work. Just wanted to let you know the painters are coming Monday for your room. She pauses. Our nursery, I mean. That's 2 weeks before the deadline we agreed on, I remind her. We found someone available sooner. Such good luck, don't you think? The apartment hunt consumes my evenings. Each application results in the same response. We've selected another candidate. The fourth rejection comes with candid feedback over 80 applicants for a one-bedroom apartment within my price range. My friend Cynthia's couch serves as temporary refuge until her boyfriend moves in unexpectedly. Just for the weekend, she promises, but her eyes tell a different story. That night, I park behind the design studio, reclining my seat as far as it will go. Sleep comes in restless patches between street noises and the discomfort of the gear shift pressing against my leg. The temperature drops to the low 40s, and my thin jacket provides little warmth. By morning, my fingers are too stiff to hold a pencil properly. My client notices the shadows under my eyes. Are you sure you can meet our deadline, Allison? The presentation seems unfinished. Absolutely, I lie, though my design mock-ups lack the precision they normally contain. The following nights alternate between budget motels and my car. Each morning, I return to Rebecca and Daniel's house to shower and change, timing my arrival for when they've left for work. The simple act of using the bathroom in what was once my home now requires military-level planning. My stomach knots at the sound of a key in the lock, afraid Rebecca might return unexpectedly. I've started eating meals in my car, avoiding the kitchen altogether. The expensive takeout food drains my savings money that should be going toward a security deposit. The winter chill seeps through my car windows. When the temperature drops below freezing, I surrender more of my dwindling funds to another motel room. The pattern becomes unsustainable. My bank account shrinks while my anxiety expands. A perfect inverse relationship. You look like hell, Ellen says when I stumble into the office. She's new to the design team, hired just 2 months ago. We've exchanged pleasantries but little else. I mumble something about insomnia while attempting to focus on the computer screen. Later, Ellen places a coffee on my desk and pulls up a chair. My apartment has a pull-out couch, she says without preamble. It's not fancy, but it's yours for as long as you need it. I start to reach for my wallet. I can pay. Number. Her hand covers mine, warm and firm. I was homeless once too. This is how we break the cycle. The tears I've been holding back for weeks threaten to spill over, but I manage a nod of gratitude. Saturday arrives with Rebecca's baby shower. I consider skipping it, but doing so would only fuel more family speculation. I arrive bearing a gift-wrapped bassinet, playing my part in the charade. The living room overflows with family and friends. Presents pile high on the dining table, the same table where Rebecca had told me I wasn't family. I want to thank Allison, Rebecca announces, glass of sparkling cider raised, for understanding our need for family space and graciously moving out. 20 pairs of eyes turn my way. Don't you want to say something about your new place? The room grows quiet. I feel the weight of their expectation, the script I'm supposed to follow. Lie politely. Protect Rebecca's image. Maintain the fiction that this was all planned and amicable. Something shifts inside me, a quiet strength replacing the fear that's been my constant companion. I don't have a new place yet. I say, my voice steadier than I expected. The housing market is difficult, as you well know. The silence that follows carries a physical weight. My aunt's wine glass halts midway to her lips. My mother's smile freezes. Rebecca's face flushes crimson. In that moment of uncomfortable truth, I realize I don't need to protect Rebecca's image at the cost of my own truth. The revelation doesn't solve my housing crisis, but it loosens something tight around my chest, the first full breath I've taken in weeks. 3 days later, Ellen introduces me to her landlord, an elderly woman who owns several small properties on the edge of Denver. It's basically a shoebox, Ellen warns as we drive to see the studio apartment, but it's clean and the rent is reasonable. Along the way, Ellen shares her own story, how her brother stole her inheritance after their parents died, leaving her homeless during her final year of college. Blood doesn't guarantee loyalty, she says, making a sharp turn. Sometimes family is just who shows up when everyone else walks away. A week later, after careful consideration, the studio apartment is indeed tiny, barely room for a bed and small table, but the windows face east, perfect morning light for drawing. The landlord, impressed by Ellen's recommendation, waives the security deposit. You can move in tomorrow, she says, handing me the keys. First month's rent due next week. That evening, Ellen's friends arrive with housewarming gifts, a futon from someone's guest room, mismatched dishes, a small desk rescued from a corporate office renovation. By midnight, the tiny space resembles a home. My home. I hang my single print of vintage Denver skyline on the wall above the desk. It's not much, but it's mine. Each night, I document every interaction with Rebecca and Daniel, every false accusation, every small cruelty. The record grows. A chronicle of truth. 13 months later, the phone rings. Rebecca's number flashes on the screen, the first contact since I moved out. I stare at it, remembering the girl who slept in her car, afraid and alone. That girl no longer exists. I answer the call. Hello, Rebecca. Allison. Her voice lacks its usual confidence. How are you? I'm doing well, working on a new restaurant design. I keep my tone neutral, neither friendly nor cold. Professional. The line goes quiet for several seconds. That's good. Another pause. I wasn't sure you'd answer. I wait, saying nothing. The space between us fills with unspoken history. We've hit a rough patch. Rebecca finally continues, her composed facade cracking. The business collapsed. The house. We lost the house last month. My fingers tighten around the phone. For a moment, I remember sitting in my car in February. The windows fogging with my breath as I tried to sleep. My toes numb with cold. Where are you staying now? I ask, my voice steady. We're in a motel. Rebecca's voice breaks. Just temporarily. The kids. She stops, composes herself. We have 2 now. Jeremy and little Sophia. She's 4 months old. I jot down notes on my sketch pad. 2 children. No home. Business failed. I approach this conversation like a design problem. Assess the situation. Identify resources. Determine options. How long can you stay at the motel? I ask. 3 more days. Maybe 5 if Daniel picks up some extra work. Her voice grows desperate as I remain measured rather than immediately offering help. We've applied for apartments but with the business bankruptcy on our record. I nod, though she can't see me. The Denver housing market hasn't become any more forgiving in the past year. The children shouldn't suffer for adult problems. Rebecca says, her voice taking on a familiar persuasive tone. They're innocent in all this. The statement hits me like a physical blow. I close my eyes and see myself curled up in the back seat of my Honda, shivering under a thin blanket, the January wind whistling through a window that wouldn't fully close. I had been innocent too. I understand children shouldn't suffer. I reply evenly. No one should. Look, I know things weren't perfect when you lived with us. Rebecca continues. We weren't at our best back then, but it wasn't that serious. Everyone goes through rough patches. Wasn't that serious? The dismissal solidifies something in me. I remember the boxes of my belongings stacked haphazardly in the hallway, design materials damaged beyond repair. I remember Daniel changing the Wi-Fi password without telling me, claiming security concerns when I needed to submit client work. Rebecca? I say carefully, what exactly are you asking me for? She hesitates. We need somewhere to stay, just until we get back on our feet. A month, maybe 2. Her voice drops to a whisper. Blood is thicker than water, Allie. We're family. Family. The word that once would have compelled me to open my doors without question now rings hollow. Rebecca still sees me only as a resource, not as a person who was vulnerable and was hurt. As Rebecca's voice broke with tears, I felt a momentary urge to rescue them. Should I open my home to the very people who had left me homeless, or was maintaining my hard-won boundaries the healthier choice for everyone? Let me think about this and call you back, I say, ending the call before emotion can cloud my judgment. I immediately dial Ellen. Her voice grounds me, warm and familiar. They lost everything, I explain, pacing my small apartment. They want to stay with me. And how do you feel about that? Ellen asks, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. Conflicted. They're in trouble, but I trail off, looking around my studio apartment, my sanctuary, my hard-won peace. Remember where you were a year ago, Ellen says gently. Remember how far you've come. Protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's necessary. We spend the next hour researching family shelters and housing assistance programs in Denver. Ellen emails me links while I compile information on rental assistance, food banks, and emergency housing options. This is genuinely helpful, Ellen reassures me. More helpful than sacrificing your well-being. By midnight, I've created a comprehensive document of resources. It's the kind of help I wish someone had given me, practical, thorough, respectful of their agency. My phone rings again, just as I'm preparing for bed. Daniel this time, not Rebecca. Allison, I need to tell you something. His voice sounds different, weary, but somehow more present than I remember. Those things Rebecca said about you when you were living with us, about being inappropriate with me. He pauses. They weren't true. None of it was true. I sit on the edge of my bed, stunned by this admission 13 months too late. Why are you telling me this now? I ask. Because we need your help, he admits. But you deserve the truth first. After we hang up, I check my email to find a message from my mother. Word of Rebecca and Daniel's financial collapse has spread through the family. The subject line reads, "We need to talk about your sister." I close my laptop and look around my small apartment, the space that's mine alone. Tomorrow, I'll call Rebecca with resources instead of refuge. Tonight, I'll sleep peacefully in the home I've created for myself. 2 days later, the sharp knock at my door comes just after 7. No text, no warning call, just 3 rapid taps that echo through my studio apartment like gunshots. I'm halfway through dinner, a simple bowl of pasta at my fold-down table when I hear my father's voice through the door. "Allison? It's Dad and Mom. We need to talk." My stomach tightens as I open the door. They stand shoulder to shoulder in the narrow hallway, Mom's fingers working the clasp of her purse, open and closed with nervous energy. Dad's usual confident posture is noticeably diminished, his shoulders slightly hunched. "Can we come in?" Mom asks, her eyes already darting past me to assess my living situation. I step aside, gesturing them into my home, all 400 square feet of it. The bed that doubles as my couch, the kitchenette with exactly 2 feet of counter space. The drawing table where I create the designs that have slowly rebuilt my life. Dad clears his throat. "We've spoken with Rebecca and Daniel. They're in a real bind, honey. They need somewhere to stay," Mom adds, her voice dropping to that soft, persuasive tone she uses when she wants something without having to directly ask. "She's your sister and those are your niece and nephew we're talking about." I say nothing, just let the silence fill the room until Dad continues, "Just for a month or 2 until they find something." He offers, as if this compromise is reasonable. "Family needs to stick together during hard times." Mom's fingers finally still on her purse. "If you can't find it in your heart to help them, I don't know how we can all gather for holidays anymore." The tension would be unbearable. The threat hangs in the air between us. I take a deep breath and walk to my desk, retrieving a folder I'd hoped I wouldn't need to share. "Please, sit down," I say, gesturing to my bed and the single chair by my desk. I remain standing. I hand them each a stapled packet. This is a comprehensive list of housing assistance programs in Denver. Section 8, vouchers, family shelters with private rooms, rental assistance foundations, churches that help with security deposits. I point to the highlighted sections. I've marked the ones that specialize in families with young children. My mother stares at the papers as if they're written in a foreign language. "But you have space here." "I don't, actually," I interrupt quietly. "This apartment is barely big enough for me, but that's not really the point, is it?" I sit on the edge of my desk, looking at the people who raised me. When Rebecca and Daniel pushed me out of their home, I spent nights sleeping in my car. In February, the temperature dropped to 19 degrees. My father's face pales. "You never told us that. Would you have believed me over Rebecca?" "She told everyone I was leaving by choice." My voice remains steady, but my hands tremble slightly. While I was looking for safe places to park overnight, they were in their 4-bedroom house with the heated floors Rebecca was so proud of installing. Mom looks down at the resource list again, her fingers tracing over the names of organizations. "I rebuilt my life without family support." I continue. "I found housing, kept my job, and created a new support network. They can do the same with the resources I'm offering." I tap the papers in their hands. Everything they need is right there. 2 weeks later, we all sit around my parents' dining room table, the first family dinner since Rebecca and Daniel's financial collapse. The tension is thick enough to cut with the butter knife beside my plate. Rebecca wears the mantle of victimhood like a designer dress, tailored perfectly to her frame. "It's just hard to understand," she says, looking directly at our mother. "Allison has space, but she won't share with family in need, after everything we did for her." That's my cue. I rise from my chair, retrieving folders from my bag. With deliberate calm, I distribute copies to everyone at the table. "This is a timeline," I explain, remaining standing while they all sit with papers in hand. "From the day I moved in with Rebecca and Daniel to the day I was forced out, it includes dates, conversations, and actions. You'll find my rent payments documented on page 2. The accusations Rebecca made against me are on page 3, along with witness statements from people who were actually in their home during that time." Rebecca's face flushes. "This is ridiculous. You're trying to make us look, it's accurate." Daniel's quiet voice cuts through his wife's protest. "Everything she wrote happened exactly that way." My mother's hand covers her mouth as she reads, her eyes widening at certain passages. Dad flips through the pages with increasing discomfort. "I don't share this to hurt anyone," I say, meeting each of their eyes in turn. "But I can't allow this story to be rewritten. I've learned something important this past year." I take a deep breath. "I've found that true family doesn't have to share blood, it shares respect, honesty, and support." In the weeks that follow, I hear through Ellen that Rebecca and Daniel applied for housing through one of the programs I recommended. They qualified for emergency assistance based on having young children. The relationship with my parents hangs in uncertain territory, tense phone calls, awkward text messages, neither fully estranged nor truly reconciled. Then one ordinary Tuesday, I find an envelope in my mailbox with my mother's distinctive handwriting across the front. Inside is a single sheet of stationery, folded precisely in thirds. I hold it, unopened, wondering what bridges can be rebuilt and which ones should remain in ashes. Sunlight streams through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my condominium, casting golden patterns across the hardwood floors I selected myself. 6 months after purchasing this place, I still catch myself pausing to absorb the reality that these walls, this space, this sanctuary belongs entirely to me. The nameplate on my desk catches the light. Allison Hartwell Designs, building beauty from blank slates. I run my fingers across the engraved letters, remembering sleeping in my car, wondering if my career would survive. Now my downtown office sits just 10 minutes away, and my client list grows monthly. Throughout the condo, framed photos tell the story of my chosen family. Ellen laughing during our hiking trip to Boulder, our impromptu Thanksgiving dinner when 4 of us crammed around my tiny table. The day my design for the Westbrook Hotel lobby was unveiled, with Ellen and our friends cheering in the background, not a single photo shows Rebecca or Daniel. I adjust the last centerpiece as the doorbell rings. My first real housewarming party. Not in someone else's home, not in a cramped studio apartment, but in a space I designed to reflect every aspect of who I've become. This place is absolutely gorgeous, Ellen says, stepping inside with a bottle of champagne. Others follow: colleagues, friends, neighbors, all people who showed up when it mattered. You've created something spectacular here. The afternoon unfolds with laughter and conversation flowing as freely as the wine. So different from those tense dinners at Rebecca and Daniel's, where I constantly calculated how to appear grateful enough, helpful enough, invisible enough. A toast? Calls out Jackson from the design firm. To Allison and her incredible new home. Glasses rise, but Ellen steps forward. If I may, she says, her voice softening. I want to toast something beyond these beautiful walls. She turns to face me directly. To Allison's resilience. When I met you, you were sleeping in your car and still showing up to work with brilliant designs. You never broke, never compromised your integrity, never stopped believing in your worth. My eyes dampen as Ellen continues. You taught me that family isn't defined by blood but by loyalty and truth. You've built more than a home here. You've built a life that honors who you truly are. The words sink into my chest, warming places that once felt permanently frozen. Later, after the last guest leaves, my phone buzzes with a text from my mother, confirming our coffee meeting tomorrow. We've been carefully rebuilding our relationship, one conversation at a time. The cafe we meet at sits halfway between our home's neutral territory. My mother arrives first, already nursing a cup of tea, the timeline document I created over a year ago spread on the table before her. The edges are worn, the creases deep from repeated folding and unfolding. I read it again last night, she says without preamble. I think I understand a little more each time. I order my coffee and sit across from her. Understanding is all I ever wanted. I should have seen it sooner, she admits, carefully refolding the document. Your father and I were so conditioned to believe Rebecca's version of events. She was always so convincing. We talk for nearly an hour, the conversation easier than it's been in months. As we prepare to leave, she mentions Thanksgiving, still 3 months away. We'd love to have you, of course, she says. And Ellen too, if she'd like to come. Any of your friends, really. The house gets too quiet with just your father and me. The invitation sits between us, not a demand, not an obligation, but a genuine opening. Driving home, I pass Rebecca and Daniel's old house. A young couple lives there now with a toddler who rides his tricycle on the same driveway where I once unloaded groceries, believing I belonged. I feel no pull, no longing, no pain, just the peaceful acknowledgement of a closed chapter. As I drive past what was once a place of such betrayal, I wonder whether healing means rebuilding broken relationships, or simply making peace with their absence in our lives. Sometimes the strongest family ties are the ones we create ourselves. What would you choose, working to repair broken blood bonds, or investing in the chosen family who proved their loyalty? I turn onto my street, toward my home, toward my foundation. Either way, the choice is finally completely mine.